I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Fight Night, the Million Dollar Heist director, Craig Brewer. Craig, first up, can we talk about that oner in episode 2, the after party heist juxtaposed with the Star Spangled Banner being performed ringside? Um, that's an incredible achievement to get those things right, and it's such a pivotal scene. Talk me through it.
Thank you for bringing it up because it is my first. It is my
Really?
first ever like real intricate oneer like that. It's something that I'd been thinking about on the day, but it wasn't something that I had planned to where I sat down with a diagram or anything. What I started to do is I started to just rehearse each moment in them. And little by little, my cameraman, X, and my fantastic director of photography, Jody Williams, they started to kind of like glare at me a little bit. And they were like, it seems to me that the guy that's running from this sequence to the other sequence, and then this person that's going to this sequence, it just seems like that's all kind of like happening together. And little by little it started to dawn on them. It's like, are you thinking about doing this all in one continuous take? And I was like, let's not talk about that right now. Let's just keep rehearsing all the way through it. And by the time we got to like going down the staircase, it was quite obvious. They were like, you're planning on doing this in one continuous take. Then this excitement like just spread throughout the whole sound stage, and everybody was coming out of the offices, and actors who weren't even in the scene were coming out of their trailers, and everybody was gathering around the monitor as we did this. And I have to say, we only did about 3 passes on it, and I think we took the second take on it. It was one of the most exhilarating moments in my career, but I knew that we would be, that the trigger for it would be the national anthem. I was obviously very inspired by 60s music, and have always grown up. My dad, we would clean our house on Sundays listening to the Woodstock album. So the Jimi Hendrix version of the Star Spangled Banner always felt so counterculture to me, so much like taking something familiar and just putting it on its end. And the idea that this fight is happening where they're singing the national anthem, and yet at the same time we're experiencing this radical violence, but also this greed and bedlam. All to get a dollar just felt. I'll say it felt very American to me,
Yeah.
and really, it's one of those moments in my career that I'm very proud of, because it's just, there's nothing like those moments when you're watching them, but there's nothing like those moments for the crew putting it together, because it is undoubtedly, without a doubt, an all hands on deck moment where you cannot do it without a fantastic cameraman. You can't do it without actors hitting their mark exactly, and you can't do it without a great narrative, which we had got a great script and a great story to tell.
Yeah, the moment that the show starts in the pilot, I mean, I'm all in, and it's so beautiful to look at. It's period, and it's about an inflection point in Black culture in Atlanta, and there's so much going on with these amazing actors. But that one up is what grabbed me by the throat. It was like, okay, this is special, and kudos to you guys, all of you, for taking that gamble. And because when it pays off, the dividends, they speak for themselves, right? It's an exciting time to be able to have that work for you, don't you think?
Yeah, it's funny because I mean the thing that I remember talking to Jody, my director of photography, is like, I don't want to have a oneer that smells of a oneer. I don't want to do something that makes it seem like, well, everybody's trying to do their Goodfellas shot. It
Yeah.
needed to feel like I told him, I want to get to to like a minute into it and people to go like, well, wait a minute, has this been going on this whole time? Really having the action and the narrative driving the perspective, instead of trying to have it the other way, where like, oh, we're moving in one continuous take, and this will lead you to this and this will lead you to that, when really I just wanted to be on a freight train and have the technical aspect of it be the last thing that anybody is thinking about.
Yeah, it's a really, really heated moment, and I think it's appropriate for this heist to be done in that way, and I think that really works beautifully. Fight Night sees you reteam with some of the greatest black actors of all time: Taraji, Don, Samuel, Terrence. How does it, how does that kind of familiarity between director and actor impact a show like this?
Well, I think that was really special about this show was that it felt very familiar to everybody working on it. You know, Will Packer, the super producer on this show, has had a very long relationship with Kevin Hart, and also knows Don Cheadle, knows Taraji for a long time. But I'm in a very unique situation too, where I started my career with Terrence Howard and Taraji P. Henson. The second movie I did out of the gate was with Samuel L. Jackson. We even found Will Packer and I were passing by each other, and I heard him say, "We should get David Banner." And I said, "My David Banner?" He was like, "You're David Banner." And we started fighting over, rapper actor David Banner as to who put him in a movie first. And I would like to add that it was me. But it was a family element that I felt that was happening where all of us had a little bit of a secondhand language, a shorthand, excuse me. Terrence and I are brothers, where there's tremendous trust and love. And so when Will Packer called me and said, "We've got Samuel Jackson, we've got Kevin, we've got Taraji. You've got to go get your boy." And I remember calling Terrence and saying, "I really want you to be in this show. And I want to get out of your way, and I want to arm you with artists that will execute what you want." And I'll never forget him saying, like, "I want to look like a BG, and I want my hair to be like feathered back." And I was like, "I'm not even going to
Yeah.
argue with you. I'm going to just, you can do whatever you want, just like you did on Hustle and Flow." And then what happens is that everybody feels this comfort, and they bring their A game because they're A, professionals, but B, they're genuinely engaging with talent that they don't get to work with all the time. Kevin's never really done anything with Don Cheadle in a professional sense. Terrence Howard was ecstatic to be working with Samuel L. Jackson again. To see Samuel L. Jackson and Taraji P. Henson sharing a screen together is electrifying, but they know it too. And so there's really a tremendous part of my job is to just provide a platform really for great artistry to do their thing and let them feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. Rotten Tomatoes hypes the series as skillfully weaving this inflection point in black culture into a rollicking heist story. And the raves from the critics have been really, really impressive. I wonder if it's important for a show like this to get as many eyeballs on it as possible to have the support of the critics. What does that mean to you?
Well, it was incredibly validating, especially to, Shea Obama and the creators of the show, because it was a personal story for Shea. And it was a personal story, I think, for a lot of us that are, filmmakers from the South. So much of what we consume in culture is not really, as we grow up, usually there's LA stories or New York stories. And to have a narrative that was a true story that took place in Atlanta and also was dealing with themes that Shay and I really responded to. And what I love about it is that it really transcended race between the two of us, where we always kind of felt that there was a a South versus North component to this narrative of someone like Chicken Man, who Kevin Hart plays, being thought of as country and someone who can't do things and is beneath the gangsters that are coming in from New York. And it's funny because you get someone like me and Shay, and we're just like, we have felt this in our life. Like we've been raised around that kind of feeling. And it was rare to do something that felt personal to us, still within this like electrifying crime story. And so for not only for people, especially the critics, to say that they enjoyed the movie on a narrative level in terms of like this heist and in terms of the historical context, but that they also really embraced this notion that was very important to Shay and myself about that this was a pivotal time in Atlanta. And we can look in Atlanta now and go like, well, of course it is, as Samuel L. Jackson's character calls it, a black mecca where black businesses, artistry, where movie studios and music is so it's almost the capital of rap and hip hop in many regards. There was a time where that was not the case, and there was a transition into this, and it happened during this time. I'm just happy that the critics have picked up on that and the work reflected that particular element of the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had not known that you were involved in this, I would have even thought this has got a bit of a Craig Brewer vibe to it. Like you've really built such a killer resume of period projects spotlighting Black culture, particularly as you say in the South, like Hustle and Flow and Empire and Dolomite and now this. And it's a subgenre that I feel like is really in your wheelhouse. So final question, because we've kind of run out of time, but what keeps you coming back for more? What is it about this subgenre that you love most?
I would say that there's nothing better in this world than movies and television about people who struggle and don't have much and still fight. I know that, you know, there's a lot to point to some of the films that I've done, and you could put it under a category, I guess, of a particular type of black cinema, but I feel it transcends that. I think that, you know, movies, the movie that I'm doing right now, movies like Rocky, you know, but also, you know, movies like Claudine. You know, I grew up on a lot of these movies in the 80s where you rooted for people who did not that the deck was stacked against them, and I just think that that is a uniquely American story, and I believe that. I've experienced it in my own life. I mean, I think that my career is what it is because I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and I got to fight to make movies on the streets of Memphis and hang out with musicians that were working at gas stations and restaurants, and yet at the same time they were the most brilliant artists that I'd ever known. And I look at the work and the scripts that I respond to, and that's what they're treating upon those stories. And you know, you can look at those stories through through time, and you can see that that they kind of come in waves, you know. And for me at least, I never tire of it. I never tire of hearing about the little guy that keeps fighting, even if the audience is going, I don't think this is going to work out for him or her, you know. And so, as long as I can work with really incredible people, I don't choose to categorize it as anything other than movies where people root for the characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're really owning it. And on that note, thank you for your time and your insight, and congratulations on a really, really awesome show. I really loved it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great one.